It's on. Hey, friends, here at the Progressive Sacred coming at you. It's Julio. I'm excited to chat with you today, joining with our regular friends, co-host JP, and what's the other one? I forget her name. It doesn't really matter. I guess we'll bring them in. Oh, hey, Abby. I hope you were not able to listen to that last
Oh no,
part.
I didn't hear that at all.
Hey, everybody. As usual, it's us three joining, chatting, and we're looking forward to bringing some guests soon and all. But right now, it's us, this little community where we get to chat, share from our podcast and now our live stream. But welcoming you all. And so, yes, real quick, as we always mention when we open, we're glad to connect with you. Shoot us a shout out, say hello, and we'd love to shout you out live. Also, it's a time of conversation. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, lamentations, hit us up. We'd love to chat about it. But with that, JP, Abby, what's going on all the way from Boston? How's it going on your side of the world?
It's cold.
Nah, it's not that cold.
It's very cold.
Oh,
It is not that cold.
Much colder than a child would experience growing up in Buffalo.
It's not that cold.
Yeah. People from Buffalo are
There
saying
has been a lot of death around us this week. Well, in the week
ooh,
prior.
it's getting colder. Look at that.
very different
You guys are
varieties
starting
of death, I
cold.
would say, as well.
Yeah.
And
So that's
so
what's going on around us,
we did already
which
get a
is hard.
quick. We did receive a fun, hi, quick hello from Michaela. Hopefully, she's out there still listening. We see people are joining. Say hello to us. We'd love to shoot you out. We see, oh, Crystal, normal. Come
Mm.
on. What is
Hey,
going on,
Crystal.
Crystal? Nice to see you. Anybody else, feel free to drop a line. We'd love to shoot you out, and but also welcome the conversation. We're diving in today, friends. It is the new year. It has been now for 2 weeks that we've been on, and it's been a lot of interesting stuff at school. So I during the daytime
Mm.
I'm teaching, and during school so I'm teaching Spanish, and I'm working in the lives of young minds to talk about what this New Year's thing may mean. We've created a culture around New Year's resolutions and also talking about new
Mm.
beginnings and such. And so
Mm.
it's like, all right, how do we talk to young minds and at the same time, because junior hires right away are going to say, well, I mean, also they've only had about a decade of life compared to the multitude of decades we've had. But we have students who just like, well, nothing. Like last year sucked. Last year was stupid, right? And it's like, all right, what do you mean by that? I don't know. I didn't do anything, right? And so
Your
I'm
teenage,
like,
your junior high impression was pretty spot
Fabulous.
on.
it's like
That
it's
was great.
killing me. I'm trying to pull what's the saying, pulling teeth or whatever, and I'm like, come on, chat with me. And once we start getting to the nitty gritty and saying like, look, let's be real. Sometimes it's not easy. Sometimes it's not like,
Mm.
yes, the holidays were awesome, and here's some New Year resolutions. At that age, they barely know what resolutions are. So we've been talking about the good, the bad, and the ugly at school. So I can only imagine how those conversations been on your side of the world and in the ecclesial side. So anything that you got for us?
Well, I do think though that there is something wonderful about New Year's, right? And that is a secular kind of thing that we've created, but like this new beginning, right? But
Yeah.
I think that there are plenty of times in the church that we are brought to new beginnings, and that can happen. Not only does it happen in the biblical story often, it unfolds in our own lives, regardless of calendars. It doesn't pay attention to calendars when we get opportunities for new beginnings. And sometimes when things are so crappy, it's good to be able to say, done. I need a new beginning. And I honestly believe that. I think divorce for a lot of people, for example, is a really important new beginning that
Yep.
is not always an easy one. It's often
No.
filled with a great deal of grief, but it is a really important one.
You know, on a side,
Here's Chusa.
maybe funny, not funny. I'm here.
Chusa.
I'm always working like several screens, and as we produce this piece, I'm like looking up things online, and we're talking about New Year's, and I'm looking at lyrics to Old Lang Syne, which I enjoy singing. I don't know why. Maybe brings me back to my British, I don't know, my Scots roots.
Yeah, I
Um,
don't really. Do you have
no,
Scottish in
but then
you?
you drop like
Yeah.
things like divorce and heartbreaks and stuff, and so yeah. So then I'm like, wait, oh, maybe I should stop what I'm doing over here and focus over here. JP, anything from your side? Anything that you're
Oh, I'm going to break all theological on you, Julio. You know, kind of, it's kind of funny to me because we talked about how much we couldn't stand the lectionary readings for Advent
Hmm.
because they're all about John the Baptist freaking out and, fire and brimstone preaching that
John the
Jesus is
Baptist
coming,
isn't that bad.
and it's like the apocalypse or something. And in a sense, it is an apocalypse, but it's not really how we feel about the baby Jesus being born. And so we need some other time in our liturgical year to think of a new beginning, right? But we don't have it in our
Uh,
liturgical calendar.
uh,
Er?
Pentecost.
Easter.
Wait. Whoa, whoa, whoa.
I'm really thinking about just like this is the new beginning.
But I still think that Easter, in a lot of ways, is that.
It can be, but
Can we
frankly, I think that because it was never deeply embedded in the Christian tradition, that's why New Year's became such a kind of a substitute, let's
Mm,
start over kind of holiday.
mm.
So yeah, if I'm understanding you right, the liturgical calendar, I mean I think it's filled with a little bit more new beginnings than, or at least several between. We can see Christmas is one. We could see, but right before Advent, because right, as you look at the calendar, you end with like the end and Christ the King and all that. But then you start off with, all right, so now we're starting the season of Advent, which then leads to, the birth, which some would say, hey, that's another new beginning,
Right.
Epiphany. And then all of a sudden, Jesus is a grown man, like in a week or two.
I know. Trying to
um,
explain that to kids is so
right.
hard
And see,
when you explain the church calendar
I
to
mean,
children.
you
even
miss out on his
post,
toddler years.
even past, post Epiphany, we then roll into weeks of Christmas season, but then it's like what is it called? Not normal time or
Ordinary
Ordinary
time.
ordinary
time.
time, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, now we're just coasting
That's
until
why you can totally ignore whatever in the church calendar you don't want to pay attention to
oh
and do
stop
what
it,
you want.
oh stop
I'm
you
not I'm not following a bunch of old guys' ideas of how the church calendar and the biblical narrative should go. I can make up
but
my own one.
I
but
never
you
listened to what
totally
gray-haired men say.
you're right. You don't have to, but you totally do. You totally do. You're so liturgical. It's hilarious. But
Yeah.
I love what you do with it. You create it your own, and even though you think you're not, you are. Um, no, because I think of ordinary time. Yeah, like maybe we need that time of just like what's going on. I think of the Israelites in the deserts, of this coasting time. And then it's like, but then you enter like Lent, and the whole time it's like, oh, here we go again. It's like the roller coaster, like, all right, the build up, and then, Easter, da, 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 Pentecost. And then it's like, all right, and it's all over again. Advent, reset.
No, because you get fall. And I always think of fall as a new beginning. I mean, when we think about kind of nature religions and pagan, sort of pre-Christian, and I only really know kind of more about pagan, but I'm sure this existed in lots of cultures.
Mhm,
There was a rhythm to the seasons, the planting, the harvesting,
of
the
course.
feasting, the famine. And so in a lot of ways, you can say that they had more new beginnings kind of built in to their kind of the rhythm of their lives as they depended about growing food and harvest and planting. So one of the things that I always think about is I always think of fall as a new beginning because it is a new beginning for, I know that's not really true all over the country anymore, But for most children, you start school and that is your new year come, Labor Day or right before Labor Day.
Fall is when everything dies. That's what
I know.
Abby sees as a new beginning.
I think, but I
Well,
think for a lot of families in America it is, and for the church, it is the beginning of the programmatic year. And
and
I always find that an exciting new beginning.
Well, let's note that Christmas falls near the winter solstice because that's when the days start getting long again. So that's a new beginning.
hmm
And then we picked up Easter, which is all kinds of different times, but it's fairly near the spring
Spring
equinox
equinox.
because that's when everything's coming back to life. So we do have new beginnings built into our Christian calendar, but we kind of took them over from the nature calendar, if you
Go,
will.
Julio. You got to share something. Do
Go
it.
ahead,
no,
Julio.
and I love because thinking of different cultures, and correct me if I'm wrong, it's we more Western America think of the start of a new day, a sunrise. I don't know if this
hmm
correlates. And then Jewish culture, I think the day starts with the resting of the night when the sun goes down, right?
Hmm.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah.
true.
And so, I mean,
Yeah,
uh,
I didn't think about that.
and
That's
let me
really,
throw up,
yeah.
something like
hmm
Michaela saying, "LOL, I would love to make up my own calendar, summer all year long." Anybody? Anybody? Right? But you have people who are different season people. Some would think life starts, season starts with spring and the uplifting, and you're saying maybe it starts with the death of something and then the rise up. Let me go to Nicole's comment, which is maybe a recommendation. How to Change by Katie Milkman. All about the way to change, what you want to change, and when. All about reboot, fresh
Hmm.
starts, New Year's resolutions. Interesting.
I like the word reboot.
Yeah.
I like that word because I think for most of us, it's rarely a new beginning, but it can often be a reboot. Re-looking. I've been reading a lot. People are talking about finding your word for the year or finding your words as your family or in a couple, all these kind of things. That's like a new trendy thing opposed to resolutions. However, there is something helpful about thinking about that together. It's a reboot as an individual, as a family, as a
Mm.
church, as an
So
organization.
help me understand. That is a new vibe, right? That's a new thing.
Yeah,
Like the word
yeah,
thing. Because I feel like
yeah.
people have been talking about more. And I was like, wait, where I've been? Is this new? Like, am I learning? And I don't know. I like what it can be, right? I'm not there yet. I'm not with it. Um, I like
So
that, like
here's,
setting something
yeah.
to focus. I feel like I'm one of those, like, I need some years to see the data of how that comes back. Is that a researcher
Well,
in me? Is that you, JP?
then
Maybe
okay.
your word for the year is wait.
There you
but
go.
but okay. But here's the deal. Maybe the data comes back that it changed nothing. Well, who cares?
Well,
But maybe it's just this idea of focus, right? So a word can help focus you.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
maybe somebody after having a really terrible year, their word's going to be hope.
We
And
do,
holding on to that word hope in front of them could be life-giving.
but we do that all the time.
Oh,
Like we do that, and
I
then
agree.
let's go. We'll talk education, right? We
Yes.
set like plans so that students look ahead and say, all right, that's the focus. That's where I'm going, right?
Yes.
If not, then we're going wish-washy, or maybe the teacher may have a plan, students aren't with it. We'll do that liturgically in the church as we set. Even look at Advent. There's all the different,
Hope, peace, joy, love.
right?
And joy is the third, and it's pink, and it's not love.
And
And
we may
faith.
have different words or different orders of words in which we follow. But
Y'all
either
are
way,
just wrong.
so listen, just in this short conversation, you have convinced me of this whole New Year's word thing. Real quick, Michaela, if you're still listening, Crystal giving you a yes, Michaela, on this whole let's go summer all year long. Um, I am I love the reboot. I love the changes of seasons. The more and more, I'm still a young 40 some year old, And I think that the more life we live, the more we experience seasons. I know people
Mm,
have their favorites, but I'm one of those, like, I have a hard time picking because I need the difference. It's the reason why I kind of
mhm.
live where I do. Like, I could live in Puerto Rico and have maybe a very similar season year round, right? But I love the change. Um, and the seasons and the newness. Let's also throw in there the rebooting. I need the what is it, the reboot, the
I do
new
too.
phase,
It gives
because
rhythm. It gives a certain rhythm to life.
I need the reboot.
right,
The
like
the
liturgy.
fall, winter, spring, summer. It kind of has periods, gives life periods that mark it out
But
and let you know you're going somewhere.
you're right, but also,
Very much like liturgy does.
and and also because I feel I do experience the whole newness of a new year. And this is kind of where the topic of today we're headed into.
Hmm.
That sometimes things are just crappy. And like
Hmm.
let's bring back the word reboot. And maybe we need a reboot. But the problem with that, maybe, and help me understand the syntax of a reboot boot, that I'm I don't like the fakeness of, like, we've talked about this multiple times in through our show and our talk, the fake plastic, facade of things, right? We love Christmas, but Christmas is not the most wonderful time of the year. We love New Year's, but it's not like, just like, oh, we're just gonna toss the bad away and we're brand new and shiny, right?
We've used the word a lot here, shallow,
Yep.
surface.
Surface, right?
Sometimes we've even used the word cheap,
Right.
like cheap grace, or
Right.
this shallow dive into Advent, which maybe doesn't say like, oh, maybe it isn't the most wonderful time of the year,
Right.
right? Or that the shepherds stank, or that the manger was dirty.
Right.
But like that, I think we do talk about that a lot.
And just to say, anybody out there, again, we'd love to hear your comments and about the topic. We'd love to, or if you want to add in anything else, but also just throwing this out there because there are people out there going through some real rough times right now. If there's anything you would be willing to share, or want to send us personally, or just put it out there for us, to add in the conversation. The thing is that, like, tough, like, I'm trying to keep it where I'm not like saying colorful words, but things are crappy. In my neighborhood, just recently, 2 days before Christmas, a very nice gentleman who did a lot of service in the community was walking a dog and hit by a car, right, and lost his life. And so someone who's doing major things in the community, and no longer, right, and you know um people are still suffering, people, and I don't want to dive into something that's not mine to share. But Abby, you were sharing with me just a rough season right now, why you kind of seem a little
Right,
tired.
right. So one of the things that I can't stop thinking about is, so on Monday night, I buried, led the service for, I guess I wouldn't say buried, she was cremated, an incredible woman who, when she was well, she was like extra sunshine.
Full of life,
Oh,
very
yeah.
charismatic.
Oh, just a wonderful person. She also struggled with a lot of mental health, childhood trauma, which I don't even think the word childhood trauma really describes it. I think generational trauma is a better, I'm
Hmm.
starting to really understand how important it is for us to use that word sometimes, or those words. Um, and those things led her down a path to addiction. And she, most likely, it is not confirmed yet, but everyone sort of was living in that space, that she overdosed. But what I keep on thinking about with this reboot and her daughter, oh, her daughter did such a magnificent job talking about, is that she rebooted many times.
Mm.
And the thing that I so appreciated, because her daughter did not do shallow. Her daughter did not do all pretty, right? You heard her. Her daughter did real and honest memory eulogy of her mother, which just took a great deal of courage and real wisdom. But so what I would say is that she talked about how her mother rebooted a lot of times, but she didn't talk about it in a way of judgment. Like she would reboot, she would get clean, she would work really hard on her mental health. And I was with her as a pastor on some of those reboots, and they were sincere. And then it would crash again. And one of the things that I'm trying to think about as I judge people, because of course we all judge people. I'm working really hard at not being judgmental, but we're all, I should say, always making evaluations. You know, one of the pathways that I'm trying to undo.
Is that a nice way to say judgy?
Yes, but come on, we're all doing it, right? I mean, some of us more than others. But one of the kind of pathways I'm trying to undo in my brain is this idea that if somebody fails at a reboot, that doesn't mean they weren't sincere, right? Like how many people who struggle with addiction, it takes them many times to reach a recovery that is steady. And then, of course, we saw in COVID, lots and lots of people had a lot of years of recovery under their belt, and it fell apart.
Perseverance.
Yeah.
One day at a time.
And so I've been really appreciating thinking about her daughter's words about what she said, something like, when my mom got back up again, she got back up and gave it her all.
So I'm going to go off theological again, if I may.
You are a theologian.
I know I am. So, there's this concept, you got concepts of the end of time, the eschaton, like the rapture, millennialism, Jesus is going to come back, or Jesus already came back, preterism, and all this kind of stuff. There's another concept of the eschaton, the end of time, that I find tremendously more helpful. Instead of a realized eschatology or a coming eschatology, it's a realizing eschatology. And it's that every moment is the fullness of time. And every moment has the capacity for radical change within it. And so in every moment, we have a potential to turn things around and for life to become new. So in that sense, you think about those people in the street corners holding the sign that says, the end is near. When you talk about a new beginning or the eschaton, you're really saying the beginning is near. And that's expression, that the beginning is near, can be very, very hopeful and helpful to people who are suffering. And it can be much more hopeful and helpful than telling somebody, you don't need to do anything because Jesus is coming back soon and will do everything for you.
Or you're already damned.
Correct. That just prolongs their suffering and encourages them not to
repeat that again.
Suffering. So to say that the beginning is near, Jesus is here, the opportunity for radical change is right now. That is much more helpful to a suffering or a wounded person than to say to them that Jesus will come back, concretely soon and fix all of your problems for you. Because when you tell them that, they can just prolong their suffering and delay their healing, waiting for something to happen that, in my opinion, is never going to happen.
She's saying a little bit of like a quick Jesus Band-Aid.
But it's not even a Band-Aid. It's almost like Jesus will come and give you the
an illusion for the right.
In the future.
Yeah.
So just leave your wound open for now, even though it might get infected, because if it does get infected, Jesus can fix the infection too. What I'm saying is Jesus is here now, and the power of healing is available now. So this moment may very well be the new beginning that you've been waiting for.
The beginning is here. I like that. The
Yes.
beginning is
The
here.
beginning is near. The beginning is here. The
The
beginning
beginning
is
is
now.
now.
This sounds like a shirt. The beginning is, but so then let me ask this: in order to not just, you know, put false hope out there, like there's a lot of branches going off of
Mhm.
my head, right? Because I think we've all experienced a lot of religious malpractice, right? A lot of
Oh,
like quick,
I
like,
experienced it today.
Jesus take the wheel, or a quick easy fix, and so when looking how and again, we're coming from a lot of different backgrounds. Those who are watching us come from, a lot of. There are some who are very much well, Jesus will handle it, and like, and if that's somebody out there, that's, you know, people. So where does the healing start to begin for you? What would you say your experience of where the healing starts? If there's
Right
anybody
now,
right now, like just struggling and listening to us three and say these three people are full of crap, because what do they know about suffrage, right?
Suffrage.
I mean, I would say the healing starts right now in community,
Okay.
through the community. That's my first response.
Okay. I'm
And
trying to.
I think that there's a divinity, a spirit, a power um, greater than the material universe that will help us in that healing.
Let me real quick give a quick couple of shout outs. One to Kathy, who says hello. What's going on, Kathy? Always great to have you. Also, friend Jason, who shares with us the
Uh,
the Hest love.
Mhm.
I don't know if I
Hesed.
know Hesed.
Hesed.
I don't know
Mhm.
that word.
Hmm.
Help me out. Give me a the
Loving
Hesed.
faithfulness. Loving faithfulness.
Okay, the Hesed love of the Lord never ceases. The Lord's mercies never come to an end. They're new every morning. My reboot verse found tucked away in the middle of great lamentations. With
Mhm.
and then says Jesus sits in the ashes with us now.
Yes.
So thank you. And then
I think that's such a
That
powerful
was very
image.
beautiful. I would say Jesus sits in the ashes with us and does not say stupid, harmful things to us like Job's friends
Yeah.
said to him.
right, and I love it. I do. I see that. I feel that in my hardships, right? Like, I think if we look back to about a year or a little bit more than a year ago, even within this community, I had shared of dark times that I was going through, right? In between unemployment and the depression of life, right? And I know periods of life of darkness where I say, it wasn't oh, I'm sitting in the dark alone and Jesus is going to magically come no, I felt like a presence of of God who says, I'll sit here with you and we'll journey through this together. And so I love that image, or that saying of Jesus sitting in the ashes with us. Um, Let me pause that for a second. Say, that as Kathy shares, I think that too, JP, in community. I think community is huge, and I would even add the appropriate community. I mean, I don't know. I
Mm.
guess the people that are placed in your maybe is the good and the bad. I don't know, but I felt like I've been around community who's toxic. Maybe that's
Oh,
I mean, I
a
don't
lesson
think
within
if you,
itself.
community can be awful.
yeah, I
Right.
think if you're LGBTQ, let's just use like an easy example, and you're coming out and you're trying to figure out um, how to talk to your parents who have rejected you or something. If you're in a community that tells you, well, you got to go to conversion therapy and go back
Right.
straight, that's
Right.
not helpful community.
Oh,
Right.
we have a friend who dried up recently, and when she dried up, lost a bunch of friends.
Yeah.
So that was not a good community.
Right. And so like finding the right community, all that stuff. But I think for me the experience has been, for maybe anybody who's out there going through hardships, and walking, I think there's a greater culture that says, things are going to be okay, keep moving, and or we've learned to bottle up things, and hopefully I'm sharing words that are coming from a good place to say sometimes we have to sit in the muck and we have to deal
Yes.
with the dirt. And
Yes.
I don't, a confession before all, I don't do this great. I try to practice that in a healthy way. And I'm not
Mhm.
saying like let's live in the muck, but how do we
Mhm.
resolve it and clean it up?
Maybe that's the answer to what good community is.
Mm,
Maybe the answer to good community are the
empathy
people who will
and
sit in the muck with you.
mm,
And I hope it doesn't sound like when there's anyone suffering, you need to give up your joy and go sit and muck with them. But I think it can be both and. You
yeah,
can sit in the muck with somebody and realize that it doesn't feel like muck to you,
all right.
but you can still be there with that person. And then you
Which
can
is,
enjoy the other
And
wonder of life.
this is something
which,
we've talked around here as well, that sometimes you're not the person. Maybe, there's
Yes.
somebody better suited for that situation. Don't think that you're the superhero of all and savior of all, but there's times that you're like, no, you know what? I've journeyed there. I can sit with you, I may not be the one to help, but know that you have people who've
Mhm.
been there. For
Yeah.
people to
so
say, I wrestle with this, and I have somebody who can be in community with me. Sorry, JP,
the
go ahead.
great, no, that's fine. I mean, the great phrase, because I had major problems with this growing up. Like, you got to say the right, excuse me. You have to say the right thing. You've got to help the person. You should solve their problems for them, be a problem solver, stuff like
Mm.
that. And sometimes that is just not a helpful attitude to have in any way whatsoever. And so the phrase, I remember the first time I heard it in seminary, and it struck me. And the phrase was ministry of presence, which is that you love the person and you help the person just by being with the
Yeah,
person.
yeah.
And that doesn't mean you're trying to solve their problems, doesn't mean you're trying to give them advice. Sometimes it's appropriate to help somebody and give them advice, stuff like that. But sometimes all you can do is be there with them and be present and be calm and attentive and loving. And
I
that's a ministry of presence, and it's a very important ministry to have.
I call it showing up.
Yeah. I think
I
we could all
think,
think of a friend
yeah, showing up.
whose best times were not, them trying to pour down wisdom from above, but to say like I'm here with you, and like just
Yeah.
Yeah,
shutting up and actively listening, which
I've said
actively,
this
Yeah.
I've said this before. It's one of my favorite scenes in oh my
Lars and the
goodness,
Real Girl.
Lars and the Real Girl.
Best movie. If you have not seen Lars and the Real Girl, go see Lars and the Real Girl.
When Lars's girlfriend, who is, and this sounds perverse, but it's one of the
It's
most
not.
wholesome films you'll ever see in your life. Lars's girlfriend, who's a blow-up doll or a sex doll, is dying, and his whole church comes over to be with him
Yeah.
mm,
while she's dying, and he's just kind of sitting there. The doctor's upstairs with her, and
But it's like old ladies knitting who've brought casseroles. It's
yeah,
spectacular.
yeah, the casserole ladies are there, and they're just sitting there in his living room knitting, and he's sitting with them, and he goes like, why are y'all here? What are you doing? And one of the women says, well, we just show up and
We
we
sit. No,
kind
she
of
goes, we're sitting.
we sit and knit. We're just here in case you need something.
It's just
It's
genius.
pure ministry of presence. It's a brilliant movie. Highly recommend Lars and the Real Girl.
and we'll continue with this. I wanted to take a moment and anybody out there, and ask the question: how do you deal with the hardships? How do you what are
Mm.
some ways that you connect to anything we're saying, what are the ways that you feel that, you know what, you're right, times aren't always easy, but here's something that's helped me out. Again, we're not here coming like specialists, but people who love a good conversation and who are also growing in the journey with you. Let's see.
Or what have other people done for you that have been really helpful, you know?
Yo, just a quick shout out, good buddy from a good friend from Pennsylvania, but now lives in Florida, John Bombi. Hey, what's going on, brother? What did you miss? A whole bunch, man. The good, the bad, and the ugly. We're talking about, sometimes life is not as easy as we make it seem, especially around the holiday times, but there's some real suffering out there, and how are people overcoming some of these things? Let's see. Jason with the smartest thing I've ever said to a suffering friend is nothing. It's nothing.
That's
Uh,
deep.
oh, amen
Jason's
to that.
deep.
Yeah.
He's all right. He's a good guy. Did camp counseling with that guy. He's the wise owl. The group. I was just a young
Hmm.
buck. Um, but it's true. I've realized in my gray days, I feel like sometimes the more we speak and the more we add to it, the more sometimes the muddier we get things, as we're often not in that person's shoes or in that person's
Hmm.
situation. Um, how often has somebody told you, "Oh, I understand what you're going through," and you're like, "No, you don't."
Hmm.
Like, Abby, how many men have told you when you share something and that's very more relevant, to your realm, and they say like, "I know what you're going through."
You know what? They don't, because they're so afraid of me, and I
Terrified.
will bite their heads off that they don't. I actually have got to say that I don't have a lot of people who say that in my life. Or if they say it, they'll say something like, I'm understanding, like from my perspective, I can relate to that. I don't know what it's exactly like, but this is, something that helped me. I have a lot of people in my life who offer advice, but it's kind of interesting to me because I ask for it and they give it, and it's not, this is what you must do. It's like, try this. And that to me is really helpful too, because one thing I do think is, I often think the wisest thing we say to somebody who is suffering is nothing, but sometimes people who are suffering also need to hear things
Yeah.
like, I recently, a year ago, a very dear friend of ours died, and his widow is one of my dearest friends. And I have another widow friend, and I asked her all the best advice she had for the first, like 5, 6 months after losing your husband. And I wrote it all in a book for my friend. I was like, here is your grief book. And I told her in the very beginning, like I wrote her a letter that said, this may not work. This is just, I've interviewed a whole bunch of people, especially my one widow friend, and here are some of the things. And she found that really great.
I mean, sometimes people need advice. It really, really works. I remember first time Abby was in labor, I remember saying to her, I know what you're going through.
No, you didn't.
That didn't go over well.
You did not. But so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say the both and. But I don't know, maybe our culture has changed because I don't get a lot of people
I
saying I understand what that's like.
from
Nobody says you're up anymore.
No.
Thank God.
um they still do, believe it or not. Maybe not in your circles, but like, I was just thinking of a recent situation where I was talking about a deep personal uh, growing up story and migrating to the U.S. and someone who's as different and as far as like just a white person who has not had to learn a new culture, language, and all these things, and they're like, "No, I totally know what you're going through," and I'm like, "Nope, nope, no, you don't." But I think that from a lot of what
Uh-huh.
we're all kind of saying, I think some of my better times
Wow.
as being for there for somebody has been more of my quiet times, and in my quiet times, I really like seek. within, let's call it the spirit, like wisdom, and saying when to talk and where
Mm.
to go with the conversation or what to say, instead of a like, oh, and just diving on in. I'm like, try to be very careful.
Mm.
Hey, thanks everybody for all your conversations and all your sharing. See, John Bobby saying, we don't sit before God when the time comes. I do, you do. Expand on that, but I feel like I'm a little muddled on what you're trying to say there. Um, Michaela, who shares, I'm the worst at hardships. I run
Mm.
far, fight or flight. I'm flight 89% of the time. Working
Mm.
on it.
Oh,
Yeah,
Michaela, that's so normal.
it
Who wants
is.
to show up to suffering and be
There's a
like, oh, let me sit in the suffering and absorb it and learn?
there's a
The,
It's
third
hard.
there's a third F there that's really important. There's fight or flight. There's also freeze.
there's a
And
freeze.
Mm.
that's true in the animal world, and I think it's really true in the human world
Mm.
as well, where you don't fight, you don't flight, but you just freeze. And I think
There's a
that's can be
The
quite
whole
harmful.
fight, flight, freeze. I think there's some extra letters that recently have been added by studies. I'll have
Oh,
to get back
really?
to. Me and
Oh.
my wife were just talking about it. Let me take a quick look at a couple of the comments we're hitting up. Thanks everybody for the conversation, inviting anybody to join. Thank you for this input. This is great. Crystal, who shares with us, there is actually a little book out I heard of a few years ago that was a really good book called A Widow
Whoa.
Book. I'm assuming.
Oh. Huh.
And now we have a big one. I'm. Let's see if it fits in our little. Woo,
Oh, there's our
Oh,
Nicole.
Nicole, what is up? Um, I went through so much growing up. It was some
Mm.
tough stuff. I also had a severe eating disorder in bed one night. I thought I would die, for real. I swear, God, Jesus, the Holy Spirit came to me, told me to get up and go eat a piece of bread. I
wow.
Wow.
was to think of myself as a separate person, step outside myself and see myself as a
Wow.
child and take care of her. This was
Wow.
God's will for me. No one was going to take care of me, but it was an insult to God for me to disrespect myself. This is
Hmm.
God's child. I think of that a lot. It's tough love, but it works for me when I want to give up. God says, no,
Mm.
I made you. I want you to keep trying. And when you learn how your pain can help others, there is hope. There are reasons to stay open to life's challenges.
Wow.
Mic drop.
It's,
Thank you, Nicole, for being so brave to share that with all of us.
so I would
Oh,
can I ask a question of Nicole if she can respond?
yeah.
It
Um,
sounds to me like in that situation, God was doing with instead of doing for. Would that be an accurate description? Because
would you expand a little bit on that, JP?
I kind of see God as accompanying us and helping us, but not displacing us, not replacing us, not um, doing for us what we can do for ourselves, but helping us to do for ourselves. I'm
Being a
sorry,
good
that's not.
being a companion,
Yeah,
Hmm.
being a companion in the journey.
healing persuasively, but not coercively.
Hmm.
Hmm.
You know, it also makes me think of an Annie Lamott story. If you haven't read any of Annie Lamott, and totally fine. But if you do want to read Annie Lamott, I think the best thing to read of Annie Lamott is like the first 100 pages of her autobiography, which are clearly kind of marked. It might be even less in what her book is called Traveling Mercies. And in it, she a lot of rough stuff growing up, a lot of kind of inner demons, I would say. I
Mm-hmm.
think she would describe it that way. And she has this moment where she's alone. It's at night, and she swears Jesus stood right beside her. She'd never gone to church, never could like figure it that like didn't ever find a comfortable faith community to belong to, and really saved her. But again, I would say what you're saying is important. God with, God
Mm-hmm.
companion, not God for.
So,
Empowered her.
so
Uh,
she says,
uh,
100% God was telling me I wasn't alone. It was a coaching
Mm-hmm.
technique in my view.
Wow,
Hmm.
And
that
then
is
she
so
goes,
powerful.
Annie Lamont, yes.
Annie
I
Lamont's
hope
so
I
great.
read that correctly. Yes.
Yeah, God empowers us but doesn't overpower us.
Hmm,
Is that possible? I'm trying to figure out how to say it.
I don't
I,
know, but I'm following you.
Yeah.
I
I'm
just want,
following you.
I don't have much but to say another thanks to Nicole. I feel like I got like the big pit on the stomach that said that
Hmm.
needs to take a deep breath and be like, hey, first of all, thank you for your openness, your vulnerability, and for being willing to share. And
Amen.
my prayers is somebody out there that helps somebody out there and saying, I'm not in the journey alone. I see that others walk and ride with me, even in this technological world where we connect via online sources, and yet people are able to say, I connect with that.
Mm.
And, you know, and hopefully that word right there, Nicole, is healing. I'm sure it's been healing to somebody already. I hope that it continues to say, you know, to speak. So thank you for sharing that.
Mm.
Um, dang.
Yeah, mic drop.
Thank you all who are still out there and connecting with us and sharing. It hit like a point where it got like way awesome, and now I'm like, well, what now? Um,
We're like working our way down the mountain.
Yeah,
no, man.
yeah.
I think you know the working situation I am. I love my work. I love my job. I love the population I see day in and day out. And in areas where I relate, or areas that like throughout the years and the life journey, I can acknowledge, the pain and or the individual like uniqueness of someone's story, and say, you know what, I'll walk beside with you, and I think that's something that students and even colleagues of mine are able to see. And I'm not, you know, putting a giant patch or wearing a bracelet that says Jesus Freaks anymore, or things like that. But like, I think that I'm just an agent and a person that comes, uh, from the root and stemming from the root of love. And sometimes, you get spat on, and you get, like, as I'm sure professors in university as JP, or pastors as Abby, the pastoral life, and that's not an easy journey. I remember even students who done their internship with me, and their final paper would, they're doing a final interview with me, and I'm like, is there anything that you would, share with me, that you would tell me before I continue down this path? And my question or answer would always be, is there anything else you rather do?
Mm.
Like, I'm not trying to like diverge somebody, but saying it's
That's an
it
important
plays.
question.
It plays. Like, consider,
It does.
because especially when the days of youth ministry, and people have an image of, well, the fun person and the games and activity and pizza parties and all nighters, and I'm like, there comes a lot of junk with that.
Oh, yeah.
That is like a 10% surface, just as like what we see face value in most professions, but those represented here, professors, pastors, and such, can't imagine, how old the joke has gotten of like, well, Abby, as a pastor, what do you work one day a week? Huh?
I
Huh?
know. Good
Yeah,
God.
goodness gracious.
That is the
My
dumbest
wife works
joke.
so hard, it's
you know,
insane.
you're like, yeah, sure, I miss the life of my family and my kids, and you want to say that I work one day. Thank you.
Yeah.
I would, but I do want to say that shout out to Stratford Street United Church and Grace Community Boston, because I am serving two communities right now that think of me as an entire person. And that is just, I don't know many people who get work situations where our whole beings are welcomed to church. I mean, welcome to our job, excuse me. My whole being is welcomed to my job. That's so great. And as much, I've got to preside at somebody's service who OD'd, and that feels powerless. Feels pretty awful. I also get phone calls from 5-year-olds who ask me if I'm dizzy, and I say, "Why would I be dizzy, JR? Because I'm spinning the phone, Abby." I mean, as much of kind of the rough stuff, I get a lot of joy and wonder in my job too.
You kind of see, I don't want to, even in the rough stuff, do you feel honored and privileged that you are invited into the center of that difficulty? I mean, it's a real
honor to be trusted,
to be treated that way and trusted that way.
Yes, I do. But I hope, Julio, for as many kids that go, I want to study Spanish, you get a whole bunch of other ones that are like, hey, Mr. Nieves, what's going on? Right? It's awesome.
It's adolescence.
It's awesome.
Right now, it's junior high, it's adolescents. They love you one moment, they'll say they hate you the next moment. I'm confident in, that's one thing. I mean, I feel like, not to sound, cocky or anything, but I'm confident in who I am, and I come with my foot forward, like just saying, I'm here. In some classes, we get a lot of education and going, and in other classes, it's a lot more social work and social emotional type of work. And the next day it could be the flip, right? So, I do love several programs, and my school is connected with the Gandhi Institute of Rochester, and so they have things like help zones and places to have talking circles, and so
awesome.
It is way different than what we had maybe our experiences as students, right? When growing up, school was books and homework. Right. And now
it was also sink or swim and let me shame you if you can't learn.
Right. But we now have the technology understanding that dealing with the whole person, you can't learn if you haven't eaten. You can't learn if you're, just sitting there in constant fight or flight or freeze. Right. You can't learn so how do we take care of those needs before providing a place where we can have safer spaces where education takes place. And so with that, as we're coming up to the wrap up of our hour together, we'd love to hear any other comments or anything that you would like to share with us, but also maybe that's something like a near future topic, just working with the holistic self, with the whole person. Because I think, again, I bet JP has many hats in his profession. And
no, he doesn't.
Abby says I don't look good in hats.
Oh. Yeah, he doesn't. But no, he never takes his students to counseling center. He never comes home and says, Abby, we need to pray. By the way, he doesn't use names. He's really good about that. But we need to pray for this student. She's been taking care of her brother, blah, blah, blah. Of course he does.
And anyone out? I mean, I'm sure there's students who are listening right now. And, I'm a student I'm currently a student as well. But I'm a student who've gone to professors and have verbal vomit, and not just vomit, but the tears. That was one of the greatest blessings of seminary, that I have mentors and professors who were there in such a loving spirit, and they frustrated, to bring it full circle, frustrated the heck out of me. If any of them are listening right now, you go for help because you don't know where else to go, and because they're people with great wisdom, and all they say is,
Which is sometimes the wisest thing to say.
Right, it is.
Sitting in the ashes.
And then their loving hug comes and embraces you, and there goes the waterworks, right? There goes the moments of thank you, because this is what I needed. Before I even knew it, you know, before I knew I needed this, and now I do, and even being able to think clearer and, you know, be able to grapple with it on my own.
So
Um,
kind of tie Julio, what you just
yeah.
said, and tie into the powerful story that Nicole shared with us earlier.
Mm.
I mean, those are both examples of what I talked about earlier in the realizing eschatology, that the change, the beginning that is near, can occur at any moment, and it can be a
Mm.
new beginning. And so, and I think that's what Jesus meant when he said the kingdom of God is
At
among you.
had.
Yeah,
Or how about the kingdom of God is at
is
hand?
at hand and it's among you. So that radical potential for change is right here. It's right now,
Mm.
and it's with us. And
Hmm.
Mm.
so we don't have to wait for it. We can act on it now.
Mm.
Let's see. As we wrap up, Nicole shares, hey, possibly the most, ooh, excuse me, possibly the most important word when approaching people at any level of life journey is validation.
Uh,
Amen. If that wasn't the word of any year before, it could be a good one now.
mm.
Whatever you are feeling is real and it's yours to identify and claim, and I will sit with you through your navigation experience. That is all we
Bam!
that's all we have for today,
Another mic
baby.
drop. Another
N-
mic drop. Nicole! Woo!
Nicole's going to break all our mics.
Oh
Holy
no,
crap!
Abby's gonna break our mics with the way she's screaming.
Well,
Uh
well, and
Yeah,
when have I ever been
she's
quiet?
been clipping quite a bit recently.
When have I ever been
Validation.
quiet?
Thank you. I cannot express that enough. Thank
Oh
you.
gosh.
How beautiful.
And I will sit with you through your navigation experience. This is just great, Nicole.
How beautiful. Thank you, Nicole. Let's connect because we need to get you. You might as well sit with us. You know, from time to time. We'll bring
Tuesday
you in.
morning.
Look at
Yeah, but
that.
Tuesday mornings if you dog walk with us.
Oh,
Nicole,
nice,
we could do a Tuesday morning podcast while we're dog walking. We could
nice.
record all this.
There
It'd
you
be
go.
great.
But listen, it's so true. The power of validation. How many times I could count way too many, more fingers than I, you know, the times that due
Mm,
to the lack of validation or shutting somebody's thoughts, feelings, emotions down, someone has turned
mm,
from the church. Someone has broken relationships. Someone has felt like
mm,
complete crap. There's nothing like wanting to say, "Hey, I'm a hurting person and I'm willing to trust you,"
mm,
and for that other person to be like, mm, "I don't know that it's that way," or "No, you shouldn't
mm.
feel that way," or "Thank you, Nicole. That was beautifully said." It has come to the time, friends.
Fantastic.
There's nothing more we can say to top these last couple comments and moments, but this has been a beautiful time spent together as usual, friends. Hey, check out our podcast. Well, check out the podcast at any of the major places you get podcasts. We're gonna get rolling. I promise. We promise. We'll get that rolling again soon. Doing it in a different form. But right now the live streams are happening. So, and you could check out our page right on Facebook, the Progressive Sacred. Check out some past stuff that we've done if you like. Share, like, all the good stuff above. All to say that we appreciate you. We appreciate this time that we do together Wednesdays at 4 o'clock. And so, with that, JP and Abby, any words of wisdom that you love to share?
No, just peace be with you.
Peace
That's
be
one of
with
my
you all.
favorites.
Much
Peace be
love.
with you all.
Peace.
I got cut off.
What were you going to say?
No,
Because we're still
yeah.
live. We're still, go ahead, say it. Go
I was
ahead.
going to say the beginning is near,
Say
and
it.
then the beginning is near,
All right, now
but
cut him
then
off.
but then the